hope you're all perfectly fine. With our situation now regarding coronavirus spread throughout the whole world. So stick to the rules and stay safe at home. I'm the English teacher of grade 2, Miss Nuran, and now we're gonna have our vocabulary and selection session in lesson 14. Now let's begin. Number 1, knowledge. Knowledge is how much information you know in your life, how much information stored in your mind that make you comprehend everything you see, most of what you see. Okay, let's go on. Curious. Curious is the desire of knowing more, the desire of how much you want to know more about something. Okay, so motion. Motion is the movement of something. Motion is the movement of something. Okay, silence. Shh. Yeah. Silence is shh. No speaking and being quiet. Okay. Illness. Illness is equal to sickness. Okay, when the person is sick, okay, so this person is ill, right? So the noun of ill as an adjective, okay, is illness. Okay, now imitated. Imitated is like do the same actions of a specific person or an animal. That depends. Like for example, when you imitate a monkey, you'll be like hoo, 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 hoo. Okay. So this is called imitation. Okay, imitated. When you imitate someone, you do the exact movement and spoken language of this person or animal. Okay, so darkness is the opposite of light. Okay, darkness when the room, for example, is pitch black. Okay, so this is called darkness. Okay, when the light is absent, this is called darkness, right? Okay. Behavior. Behavior is how the person is communicating with you. Okay, how the person behave. Okay, whether it was a polite way or a rude way. Okay, so this is called behavior as the general dealings of this person. Okay, so let's see our examples, guys. Knowledge or information can come from books and many other places, right? It can come from your family and friends, and can come from books and stories, can come from school and teachers, right? Okay, let's see our next example. Curious. Curious, you can search the internet if you are curious or want to learn about the animal, right? So everything you want, guys, is on internet now. Or you can ask mom and dad. They can get you an important and beneficial links, so you can, have more and more knowledge or information about something, right? Okay, so you can search the internet if you are curious or want to learn about sea animals, right? Okay, let's see motion. A hand held up is a motion to stop. A motion is a movement, okay? So a hand held up, hey, stop, okay? So this is a motion, which is a movement to stop, okay? Now let's go on to silence. Shh. The rule in the library is silence. Please don't speak. Got it? Okay. Now, illness. The child has an illness, but she won't be sick for long. Okay, so I said that illness is sickness, okay, and both means that this person is ill or sick, okay. Okay, now imitated. This girl imitated or copied. Yes, this is the exact literal meaning of imitated. Equal copy. When you copy the person or the animal, when you make an exact copy of it, okay. So this girl imitated or copied her teacher to learn sign language. You got it? Okay. Like when you copy me in my class at home, for example, I suppose. Okay. So darkness, flashlights help people see better in darkness, right? Like in darkness, there's no any light, so you can see. So when you hold a flashlight, now this light comes to your eyes or reflects your eyes so you can see, right? Okay, so darkness is where there is no light, okay? Now behavior. Taking a telephone message is good behavior. It is a polite way to act. So taking a telephone message is a good behavior, means a good way of dealings for the person, okay? A good way of communication, a good way of how the person behave, okay? Okay, now let's continue to our selection. Okay, now let's go on. Helen Keller. Helen what, guys? Keller. Okay, who wrote the story or the text? Jane Sutcliffe. Who wrote the story or the text? Jane Sutcliffe. Okay, so who illustrated it? Robert Papp. Okay, now what's the genre of the story or the text? It is a biography. Means that we're gonna know about Helen Keller as a person. We're gonna know the events of her life. Okay, so a biography tells about events in a person's life. Okay, now let's go on. So, Scumbia, Alabama, 1886. Helen Keller reached out. She touched warm, coarse hair. It was rough hair, guys, okay? Her busy fingers moved farther down. They felt something smooth and wet. Slap! This was the hairy tail smacked into Helen's face. Okay, Helen couldn't see her family's milking cow. She couldn't see, guys, so she was feeling everything with her fingers and hands, okay? But she liked touching it, okay? Helen Keller had been blind and deaf for most of her life. So, was she only blind? No, she was blind and deaf. Blind means she can't see. Deaf means she can't hear. So she get every kind of information in her life by her fingers and touching things to learn what is that thing, okay? Now let's go on. The only way she knew the world was by touch, as I mentioned before, and also by taste and smell, right? Okay. Helen was born in 1880 in Scumbia, Alabama. When she was just a baby, she became very sick, okay? The illness took away her sight and hearing. The illness took away her sight and hearing. Helen couldn't hear her brother's laughter or her mother's voice. She couldn't see her father's smile or pretty flowers outside her window. For Helen, there was only silence and gray darkness. She couldn't see anything that we can see, guys. She couldn't hear anything that we can hear now, okay? She knew the world. By what? By 3 senses: touch, taste, and smell. She used to differentiate the tastes of food and drinks and so on by the taste. The smell of the scents, okay, different scents by her nose, right? Okay, and different things by touch, okay? Let's see what's next. To learn to speak, children need to hear words. But Helen couldn't hear anything, guys. So she couldn't speak. Instead, she made motions, movements, okay? So as she couldn't speak and made her movements, when she wanted her mother, she put her hand against her face. When she wanted her father, she made the motion of putting on a pair of glasses. When she was hungry, she pretended to slice and butter bread. You got it, guys? She made motions to copy the persons. Like her father was, for example, wearing glasses. So she made the motion of putting on a pair of glasses as a motion for her father, and put a motion of her hand on her cheek for her mom, okay? And when she was hungry, she pretended to slice and butter bread. You got it? Okay. So Helen knew she was different from the rest of her family. They moved their lips when they wanted things. Sometimes Helen stood between 2 people as they talked. She held her hands to their lips. Then she tried moving her own lips, but still no one understood her. She didn't hear or talk before. Like her illness was when she was a baby, so she couldn't speak. You got it? She didn't learn how to speak, and she didn't hear her family speaking. Okay, she grew up knowing the world by what, guys? Touch. So she was wondering, why are they moving their lips when they want something? So that's when she knew that she is different from the rest of her family. Okay, when she tried to move her lips as them, they still couldn't understand her, right? Okay, now let's see. That made Helen angry. Sometimes she screamed and cried and kicked for hours. It made her desperate, guys. She threw things and hit people, but it didn't change anything. She was still alone in silence and darkness. Helen was hard to control, okay? Her parents didn't know how to help her. Her parents hadn't had any kind of idea of how to help a girl that didn't hear humans talking before, and she didn't know how to talk. And she just knew the word by a touch and a taste and smell, okay? They took her to doctors. None of the doctors could help Helen see or hear anything. When Helen was 6, a doctor suggested Keller's visit Alexander Graham Bell. Okay? So, what was the suggestion, guys? To visit Alexander Graham Bell. Okay, Dr. Bell was famous. Okay, Dr. Bell was famous for inventing the telephone. He also taught deaf people. So Alexander Graham Bell was famous for what, guys? For what? For what? For what? For inventing the telephone. Perfect. Okay. And he also taught deaf people. Okay. Now let's continue what happened. Dr. Bell told the Kellers to write to Michael and Agnes in Boston. Okay. Mr. and Agnes was the head of the Perkins Institution for the Blind. He believed Helen could learn how to let out the thoughts locked inside her. So who believed that Helen could learn how to let out the thoughts locked inside her? Who? Yeah, Dr. Bell. That's why he told the Kellers to write to Michael and Agnes in Boston, that was the head of Perkins Institution for the Blind. Okay, now let's go on. Mr. and Agnes promised to send Helen a teacher. Okay, now, so who promised to send Helen a teacher? Yeah, Mr. and Agnes. Perfect. Okay, now Helen and teacher, March 1887. Okay. Helen's teacher came to live with the Kellers that spring. Her name was Annie Sullivan. Annie what, guys? Sullivan. So the teacher of Helen was called, Annie Sullivan. Yeah. What was it called? Her name, What was her name, guys? Annie Sullivan. Perfect. Okay. Annie had studied at the Perkins School. She was nearly blind herself. Annie needed to control Helen's wild behavior so she could teach her. But Helen didn't understand that Annie wanted to help her. For 2 whole weeks, Helen fought with Annie. She had Annie knocked out one of her front teeth. She even locked Annie in an upstairs room. Mr. Keller had to get a ladder and let Annie out through the window. Can you imagine how wild was the girl? She was too upset and too afraid. She needed someone to take her hand to the bright side as she was drowning in darkness, right? Let's see how we're gonna help the girl, or how exactly would that teacher, Annie Sullivan, help Helen. Still, Annie didn't give up. Little by little, Helen learned to trust her new teacher. Annie began to teach Helen about words. She spelled words using her fingers. Her hand formed a different shape for each letter. She pressed each shape into Helen's hand. When she gave Helen some cake, she spelled C-A-K-E into Helen's palm. Like when you write on the air on your palm, but you're writing on the palm instead of a paper. So that's what the teacher did on Helen's palm. She used to write things and letters on Helen's palm. Okay, when Helen held her doll, Annie spelled D-O-L-L, doll. Helen imitated the shapes. That means that she copied it, right? She made exactly as her teacher did, okay? So she did exactly as her teacher did. She thought it was a game. She didn't know that the shapes spelled words, okay? After a month, Helen could spell whatever Annie spelled. But Helen still didn't know that she was naming the things she touched. She didn't know that this kind of knowledge she had is the translation of what she's actually touching. Now let's see what's happened. Okay. One day, Helen and Annie walked to the well house. Someone was pumping water. Annie pushed Helen's hand into the rushing water. Helen felt the cool water on one hand. She felt her teacher's fingers spelling W-A-T-E-R into her other hand, over and over. Annie spelled the word. Suddenly, Helen stood very still. All at once, she understood. The liquid flowing over her hand had a name. It was water. So the liquid flowing over her hand had a name. It was water. So guys, all of a sudden she got that the thing she is touching is the name that is written on her palm. So now she got that everything had a name. Helen wanted to learn them all. She ran from one thing to another. Annie spelled the name of everything Helen touched. Then Helen turned and pointed to Annie. Now Annie spelled her T-E-A-C-H-E-R. Then Annie. From then on, Helen's name for Annie was teacher. That summer, Helen learned a lot of new words. She stopped using her old motions. Her fingers gave her all the words she needed, as, of course, we remember in the previous page, okay, that her teacher used to make her fingers to make a specific shape for every letter. Got it? Okay, now let's continue. Annie didn't teach Helen words one at a time. She talked to her in full sentences. That way, Helen learned more than just new words. She learned new ideas. Helen and Annie took long walks through the woods and along the river. Annie gave Helen lessons on the walks. She showed Helen how seeds sprout and plants grow. She made mountains out of mud and taught Helen about volcanoes. Volcanoes? Huh? What are volcanoes, guys? Yeah, the one that erupt or explode, getting lava or hot molten rocks outside. Okay. So sometimes they climbed a tree and had a lesson there. What a lovely lesson. Okay. Helen was hungry for knowledge. She wanted to learn everything Annie could teach her. Soon Annie started teaching Helen how to read. So after getting the basic knowledge of life by writing or spelling into Annie's palm, now Annie is trying to make Helen read. So she went teaching her how to read. She wanted to learn everything Annie could teach her. Which one? Helen, perfect. Okay. Now the words were printed in raised letters for a blind person. So the letters, guys, that Helen was reading was protruding or raised a little, like in a kind of a 3D, that when she touches it, oh, she can know the letter. You got it? Okay. Now, Helen filled the words with her fingers. She liked to hunt for words she knew. When she learned to read better, she read her books over and over. So, when she was better and better at reading, she read her books over and over. Her curious fingers wore down the raised letters. So she kept reading once and twice and thrice and 4 times, 5 times, till she actually mastered reading. Okay, now let's go on to the last page. Helen also learned to write. She wrote letters to her family and Dr. Bell. She wrote many letters to Mr. and Agnes in Boston. Okay, Mr. and Agnes was amazed by how much Helen had learned. He published some of Helen's letters. Reporters began to write about Helen. Soon she was famous. People all over the world want to know about the Miracle Girl. Okay, and Helen wanted to know all about the world. So, guys, if it's not for the big, huge, extreme curiosity of the little girl, which is Helen, she wouldn't know anything. And if it's not for the determination and hard work of her teacher, okay, Annie Sullivan, the girl wouldn't trust her and accept her as her teacher and take knowledge from her, right? Okay, so it's very important for all of you to have curiosity about your life. Ask about everything you need. Ask your mom, dad, teacher, okay, seniors, your big brothers, big sisters, okay? Ask about everything, okay? Just get more and more knowledge so you can be something that's really successful later. Hope you enjoyed our story and hope you had fun. Okay, so now see you soon, safe and sound. Hope you're all perfect.